Thieman was accidentally caught up in the Vietnam orphan airlift, and her book, This Must Be My Brother, details her daring adventure of helping to rescue babies in Saigon with falling to the communists. When excerpts from this book were in Chicken Soup for Mother's Soul, LeAnn became one of Chicken Soup's most prolific writers. That and her devotion to more than 30 years of nursing made LeAnn the ideal co-author of the New York Times best-selling Chicken Soup for the Nurse's Soul books. In addition, and I think you've seen some of those books out there, in addition, she's authored 11 other Chicken Soup titles. Her most recent is SelfCare for Healthcare, your guide to physical, mental, and spiritual health. And it's a component of a year-long Self-Care for Healthcare program. She's been featured in Newsweek's magazine, Voices of the Century issue, on Fox TV, News, PBS, PBC, and NPR. And LeAnn's messages of hope inspire people all over the continent. So many say, just when I thought I couldn't do it anymore, I listened to LeAnn. This afternoon, as LeAnn shares true stories and life balance lessons that inspire, uplift, and encourage, we hope that that will encourage you as well. So with that, please help me welcome LeAnn Thieman.
Just testing the microphone. Can you hear me okay? Good. Because you don't want to miss this. Because there were 100 little babies laying 3 and 4 to a cardboard box strapped in the belly of a gun cargo jet. It was 1975. Saigon was falling to the communists, and I was accidentally caught up in the Vietnam orphan airlift. Now some people say, oh, LeAnn, you're so brave. I like to think that bravery played a part, but the truth is, naivete and faith played even more. You know, this whole adventure, I know, really began when I was just a little girl. I have really vivid memories of Thanksgiving clothing drives at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Vinton, Iowa, because I was raised on a farm there. And I still remember hanging from the podium at Thanksgiving time was a picture of a starving child. Remember the posters of the kids with the big bloated bellies, the big sad eyes filled with tears? Well, it touched my heart. So my 7 brothers and sisters and I went home and tried on all of our hand-me-down clothes. Anybody here have to wear hand-me-down clothes? Anybody still wearing hand-me-down clothes? Hand-me-up clothes from our kids? So back then, if something didn't fit Bob, Denny, Roger, Diane, Mary, Teresa, or Keith, I tried it on, and if it didn't fit the runt, we'd box it up and take it to the clothing drive. Now, in retrospect, I think we might have been kind of poor, Iowa farm folk, but I felt rich. I still remember trick-or-treating for UNICEF. They'd gather all of us kids in the school gymnasium in Brandon, everybody from kindergarten through 12th grade, almost 200 of us. And they showed us film clips of Danny Kaye interacting with starving orphan children. Anybody here remember Danny Kaye? Well, thank you. The young ones are saying, who's Danny Kaye? That's when I realized that part of the story is 50 years old and they're not. But Danny taught me that 2.5 cents could buy a carton of milk and save a child's life. And that's when I knew I really wanted to do something for the orphans of the world. As a matter of fact, I still remember the day I was only 20 years old when Mark and I took that romantic walk next to the creek. Actually, it's a crick, right? And at the crick, Mark asked me to marry him, and I said yes, and at that moment I told him of that dream. I wanted to adopt a child. So these things must have been on my mind that day when I was pushing our 2 little girls in the stroller in the mall in Iowa City. And I came upon a bake sale for Friends of Children of Vietnam. It was a national organization raising money for the war orphans. Well, I wanted to do my part. I wanted to make a difference. So I stopped to buy a dozen cupcakes. Understand that is all I ever intended to do for the orphans of the world. But then I saw a brochure and learned about the organization. Oh, there's a meeting next week, so I thought I should check it out. Now, do you ever have things that start really small and you get way involved and have no idea how that happened? It's why you're here today, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I went to the very first meeting. There were 6 moms sitting around a chrome kitchen table, but they told me about the needs of the orphans in Vietnam, and I signed up. Well, wouldn't you know, within just a few weeks, the president of that little chapter moved away. I became the chapter president. Our basement in Iowa City became the Iowa chapter headquarters of FCVN. We put drop boxes in grocery stores. We had baby showers. I went to hospitals and clinics, and we shipped 5 tons of supplies to Vietnam in 3 years. So maybe that's why the national organization called then and asked if I would be the next escort to fly to Vietnam and bring 6 babies, keyword 6, back to their adopted homes in the United States. I had 24 hours to decide if I would fly to Vietnam in April 1975. There were lots of reasons why I wanted to say, yes, I'll go. I knew that Vietnam was a destitute nation, and the children had been living in these horrific, impoverished conditions. And American servicemen and women that had done so much good in Vietnam were gone. And I remind every audience the good American servicemen and women did then and continue to do today. As a matter of fact, if anybody here has served our country, would you raise your hands? Because I always thank you for serving. Because of you, we gather here in freedom today. And I always honor the veterans. The American presence left more in Vietnam because there were a lot of Amerasian children left behind. They left their impression. Can you see this? Bunny ears. This is not a Vietnamese tradition. But unfortunately, they did leave behind 50,000 Amerasian children. Half American, half Asian. And at the time, children of a mixed race would never be accepted in society. They'd never have a legal name or get married. And unfortunately, those children that happened to be black were even more ostracized because that race was so foreign to them. I wanted to say, yes, I'll go, because I knew the little kids that were crippled got no money at all from the Vietnamese government. As a matter of fact, they only allotted 11 cents per day for the orphans, but not a penny for a disabled one. So I knew they were relying on organizations like ours to help them. I wanted to say, yes, I will go, because I knew that the children, those precious, precious children, needed help and hope and health and happiness and homes. This little boy's holding a picture of a family waiting for him, and he's waiting for somebody like me to bring him home. So you can see there must have been 24 big reasons why I wanted to say, yes, I will go. But there were a couple of reasons why I wanted to say, no, I can't. I had 2 little girls and a husband. So I called the Vietnamese government, and they assured me the war was far from Saigon. It won't get worse. I thought, great. So I called the headquarters of FCVN and told them I'll go. And between the day I said, yes, I will go, and the day before I got there, the bombing went from 100 miles outside of Saigon to right outside the city limits.
Oh my God.
So that day, I was greeted when I got there by these words. Have you heard the news? Last night, President Gerald Ford okayed Operation Baby Lift. You won't help us take out 6 babies. You'll help us take out 300. So I went, 300. That's when I knew why I had said yes. That's when I knew what was driving me to go. Now, I was a nurse. I was working pediatrics. Nothing had prepared me for this. We went to the 2-story center. My friend Carol and I both went, and Sherry, the director, picked us up at the airport and drove us to the 2-story center that normally just housed 10 babies for those kids that were too sick to be in our foster homes or other orphanages. But this day, bombs are dropping, so they're grabbing kids from all the other orphanages, from all of our foster homes, and I walk into the downstairs where every inch of floor is covered with a baby. And we could hear the bombs drop. Our building shook. And then I went upstairs where there were seas and seas of babbling, burping, bawling babies. This is the first picture taken of me. I'll never forget. I was holding this little girl with a shaved head. And I remember saying to Carol, my friend, who was with me, take this, my very first picture here in Vietnam. And then, friends, on the 3rd day I was there, I had a new assignment. The director said, LeAnn, you've probably figured this out. I hadn't. We know that you and Mark have applied for adoption of a son through FCVN, and we know you expect him in 2 or 3 years. That's normal. Well, because of Operation Baby Lift, we're going to assign you one of the 100 babies we have gathered here. Or you can walk into the next room and choose a son. And I walked into that room of 100 babies. And across the room, standing next to a crib, was a little 9-month-old boy. Pinching the toes of the baby inside should have been a hint. But that little fella took one look at me, and he got down on his hands and knees, and he crawled right across the room into my arms, my heart, and our family. We had a son. This is Mitch on my right knee. Now, it's my absolute conviction God created this child to be our son. No clue I was conceived in somebody else's womb in another land, because I know with all my heart God made him only for us. And if anybody here's adopted a child, they'll tell you. It's true, isn't it? You know that. Now, I had no doubt about that whole divine assignment thing, but if I would have had a doubt, it would have been erased. Because the week I got back from Vietnam, Carol came racing to my house one day, waving a photograph. "LeAnn, do you remember that very first picture you had me take?" I said, "Oh, I'll never forget. I was holding that little girl with a shaved head." She said, "Well, I have that picture here. And there's only one other person in the background. Mitch. 3 days before he picked me. Just waiting for his mama. So now I had a son and a mission within this mission. But getting all the babies to the airport's not so easy. Did you know you can fit 22 in a Volkswagen van? Simply take out the center seat. 22 fit quite snugly all around me. Actually, there's room for 2 more, apparently. It's kind of sad to think this is probably the only cover girl shot I will ever get. It was on the front of the St. Louis Journal back in 1975. However, I'm humbled to say this is the photograph that appeared in the Newsweek magazine Voices of the Century issue. In the year 2000, they were doing a 100-year oral history of the United States. They called me and put my narrative of Operation Baby Lift and this photo on the same page as Henry Kissinger. But back then, we went to the airport where there's a great big C-141 cargo jet, huge empty airplane. But not today. Today they had 22 cardboard boxes side by side. And we found out we can fit 2 to 3 babies in a cardboard box. Then, believing in seatbelt safety, we took a strap from one end of the plane, rolled the change box, and secured it on the other. There were 9 of us to take care of 100 babies. Imagine your worst shift ever. It was so hard, but it was joyful work at the same time. I remember sitting there, cross-legged on the floor, propping a bottle, burping a baby, holding a baby, watching my son. And then I saw the little girl that we brought on the plane. She'd had a cleft palate. And we knew if we left her there, she'd never survive. So here we are. I had watched the workers at the center feeding her drop by drop by drop, and here we are with all these squalling babies, and here's this little girl just crying herself hoarse. So then you wonder, do you put down all the other babies to take care of one? Sure. I just remember the other 99 bawling in protest, as we did. But we got all the way then to the Philippines. And then we came home and lived happily ever after.
Oh, your girls were young.
They were young. They were only 2 and 4 at the time. So I went about my life merrily. We were living in Iowa City. We eventually moved then to Colorado, where we live today. And I went about my life being a nurse part-time and raising our kids. And when Mitch was in high school, I knew he didn't even know the story. So I knew it was time to write it. And it took me 5 years to write the whole story, called This Must Be My Brother, my story of Operation Baby Lift, never guessing the world would care. But immediately, nursing organizations to which I belonged began asking me if I would talk at their conventions. I said, what would I talk about? I'm not a speaker. They said, lessons you learned from Operation Baby Lift. And that's when I knew. I wrote a speech, and later a book, and a keynote, and now a year-long program based on balancing life in your war zones. And isn't it wonderful that the Iowa Department of Public Health bought you one So every one of you has this. Every chapter begins a bit with Operation Baby Lift and some of the lessons I learned on caring for your mind, your body, and your spirit. Well, I started then this whole new career, had to quit my day job, I'm writing, I'm talking to nurses, and then Jack Canfield calls and asks if I'm a co-author, Chicken Soup for the Nurse's Soul. And that's the one that on its own hit the number one, it hit number 17 on the New York Times bestseller list because I was talking to nurses so much. And that's when Chicken Soup said, what else you want to write? And I said, we have to write one for caregivers. And there's a story in here about dietitians and healthcare workers and diabetic instructor. Because you know you are all caregivers. Recognize that or not. You are indeed. And then I went about so suddenly I have this new career, and then on the 25th anniversary, and then my kids grew up, by the way.
Yeah.
I had to put this picture in here. One day in college, I found them in the same position as they'd been before. Seriously, is that not just too cute, really? And my kids all grew up, and now my kids have kids. And my baby girl adopted a baby girl and a baby boy from Mississippi. And then on the 25th anniversary of Operation Baby Lift, I got to go to a reunion and stand before 100 men and women I hope to bring out.
Oh my God.
And when I got there that day, somebody was signing, I was signing in at the table not unlike the one outside here. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, I know you. And I turned around and saw her repaired cleft palate and said, and I know you.
Oh my God.
And one day I'm going to find Holly Wells again and find her picture so I can add that to this. And it was on that same 25th anniversary year that President Gerald Ford heard that I was going to be in the same town he was going to be in Colorado, and he asked if he could meet me. He asked if he could have his picture taken with me. I said, I don't know, I'm kind of busy. And when people see this, they say, wow, LeAnn, that was some adventure. That is the truth. Wow, LeAnn, you were so brave. That's not the truth. Things happened to me in Vietnam that brought me to my knees. I was no hero. I was no hero. I was just this ordinary nurse and mom caught up in something way over my head. But the thing I really learned from all of that adventure and that I've dedicated the rest of my life to today is I honestly believe you don't have to be in Vietnam to be in a war zone. You know that. You've all had individual war zones in your own lives. And I think to cope in the war zones of our lives, we have to be strong of mind, body, and spirit. And to be strong in these three ways, we have to nurture ourselves in these three ways every single day. We can't just wait for weekends to catch up, to sleep in late, eat a big breakfast, and go to church. We need to take time every day, even if it's in 15-minute increments, to nurture our bodies, minds, and spirits. But as I traveled this continent talking to people in healthcare and people of service like you, I realized that you're so busy taking care of other people, you sometimes take a lousy care of yourselves. You treat yourselves in ways that you would never treat a patient or somebody that you were teaching. You would never say to somebody else, you can't have anything to eat today. No, sir, I'm not going to feed you. You ate too much yesterday. You would never say that to somebody else. Maybe we would never say, well, maybe at 2 o'clock I'll throw you some junk food. We would never do, but how often do we do that to ourselves? We know we're supposed to drink 6 glasses of water a day. How simple could that be? But how often do we give our bodies the quantity and quality of food and drink we know it needs? We neglect to sleep. Do you ever hear yourself say, I get by on that many hours. I survive on that much sleep. How did we ever get to a place where surviving or getting by would be good enough for us? I read a survey recently that said 80% of Americans said they would get the required 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And have you been reading the research? It's even been in the newspapers now. Science has proven the human body requires 7 to 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. If we're not giving it that, we are actually increasing our blood pressures, depleting our immune systems, increasing our fatty deposits. That's when some women say, Seriously, fatty deposits? I mean, shortening my lifespan was one thing, but fatty deposits? I'm going to bed. 80% of Americans said they would get the required 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night if they didn't have television or the internet. And I'm saying, who's the boss of them? We set alarms to wake up in the morning. I suggest we set alarms to go to bed at night. How are you going to turn off technology, turn off electricity to get your body the sleep it needs? And exercise. That we've had so many good sessions on that today, and I so appreciated that when I think it was Ms. Gustafson was saying that now we don't even have to make it in 10 and 15 minute increments, because now we do know that it's cumulative. Didn't I hear today we're supposed to get 150 minutes in a week? But isn't it good to know that now you can do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes here, and it all adds up? Surely we can find 10-minute increments to get our bodies some exercise? And as busy as we are, I think it makes sense to try to incorporate exercise into our everyday lives. Taking walking meetings. And when I worked at the hospital, I'd jog up and down the stairwell at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was the only way I could figure out how to get some exercise into my life every day. But this is when I always imagine Grandma laughing down from heaven, because for all generations before us, men and women got their exercise from their everyday activities. Now in America, we pay other people to do things for us sometimes. We pay people to mow our lawns and rake our leaves and shovel our snow and clean our houses and wash our cars so we have time to go to a health club and work out. And then we get there and drive round and round looking for a parking place closer to the door so we don't have to walk so far to get our exercise. How are you going to pay attention, even in 15-minute increments, to get your body the nutrition, the rest and sleep, and exercise you know it needs? You teach this stuff, and your body deserves it. Now the second part of our lives we have to keep in balance is our mental selves. As busy as we are in this chaotic world, it is crucial that we take time every single day, several times a day, for mental rest. And one of the best ways to do it is the best. It's just that it is so simple, we often discount it. And that's why taking time every day, 3 or 4 times a day, to breathe. You know the breathing they taught in childbirth class or they teach in yoga? We breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Slow, deep, easy from your abdomen. For 3 or 4 minutes at a time releases a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of endorphins in our brain. I read in a nursing journal once, endorphins have the same molecular makeup as morphine. And we have this on tap. And forget to utilize it by doing rhythmic things, walking, laughing, jogging, swimming, laughing, breathing. It's a great coping skill. The second mental balance tool I really believe in is the power of positive thinking. Did anybody else read that book by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale when I was just in my 20s? I knew he was right. We get what we expect in life. We get what we visualize. We become our most dominant thought. That's a little scary. Then, Bernie Siegel, a surgeon, took it to another level. Anybody read the works of Bernie Siegel, Love, Medicine, and Miracles? He was a surgeon and that realized that people that had positive thinking and visualization were getting better when other patients weren't. He quit his day job to do scientific research to prove that what you think about can actually change your body function. One of his first case studies in the early 80s was a young 30-year-old woman who'd been diagnosed with inoperable abdominal cancer and given only 6 months to live. Well, she would not accept it. She said every day she was going to visualize, like Bernie Siegel taught. Every day she was going to visualize that her cancer cells were carrots and her white blood cells were rabbits. And for an hour every day she visualized rabbits eating carrots in her system. And in 3 months, her tumor was gone. He documented that as a scientific study. It took me too long to wrap my mind around this scientific truth. Our bodies and minds don't distinguish the difference between experience and visualization. They react as if they both happened. Brady tells the story of a group of men in a chemotherapy study. Half of the 500 got the chemo, the other got a sugar pill. Of course, they didn't know which group they were going to be in, but they're told if you're getting the chemo, you will likely lose your hair. But of the men that got the sugar pill, 20% of them lost their hair. Why? Why? It's what they visualized, it's what they expected, it's what they told themselves. Our bodies and minds don't distinguish the difference. That's why they use it in sports. Lindsey Vonn said the reason that she won that gold is she went down that slope once and she visualized it 1,000 times. There was an American prisoner of war detained in Vietnam for 6 years in a bamboo cage. One of the methods he used for coping was, in his mind every day, he played 18 holes of excellent golf on his favorite golf course back home. Mercifully, he was rescued, brought home, began to heal, and on one of his very first outings, he went to that golf course and shot way under par. People said, "How could you do that?" He said, "I've done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times." Your mind is a computer. You control the input. How are you going to use positive thinking and visualization to change not only your happiness, but indeed your health, and even your workplace? Now there's a third mental balance tool we too often forget to utilize. This good caregiver person didn't forget. She was a young gal who just graduated from college, and she thought she could handle anything the world brought to her. Her very first thing she wanted to do, though, was to move home to be with her mom, who had moved in with her mom, who had Alzheimer's. Now the young girl thought she could handle everything, anything, and nothing was going to rattle her until the first morning she caught Grandma in the bathroom, trying to brush her teeth with a sharp razor. Her mom came in and calmed the situation. But the longer the young gal was there, the better things got, and they would have Grandma fold the towels over and over and over again and sweep the porch over and over and over again. And the girl loved Grandma so much. She wanted to do something really special for her. So she wanted to take her to a buffet where Grandma could pick anything she wanted to eat. Now her mom didn't think that was such a good idea, but the young gal was sure it would be great. So she and Grandma go to a lovely restaurant and a buffet, and they got there, and Grandma put only one thing on her plate, that red squiggly stuff. So with only Jell-O on Grandma's plate, the young gal fixed herself a nice platter of food to eat and sat down and began to eat, when all of a sudden Grandma yelled, "We gotta get out of here! We're under engine attack!" And she crawls under the table and pulls the young girl with her and said, "We gotta go for cover." And so Grandma starts crawling on her hands and knees, heading for the door. "Come on, we gotta head for cover." The young girl thought, "What the heck?" She gets on her hands and knees and she starts to crawl behind Grandma to the door. They get to the exit. The owner's standing there and saying, "Is everything all right, ladies?" Well, Grandma picks herself up, brushes herself off and says, "Everything's fine now that you're here, Marshal Dillon." Well, now the young gal is caught laughing so hard she can't even get up off the floor. Grandma picks her up, brushes her off and says, "Honey, we have got to get out of here. You're embarrassing me." Laughter. That's our third mental balance tool. And I think sometimes when we work in healthcare and we're taking care of people, we forget to laugh. Surely we would never laugh at anyone, but wouldn't you agree we have to laugh in situations? We have to laugh at ourselves. Laughter really is the best medicine. It really does lower your blood pressure. It boosts your immune systems. It releases those endorphins in our brains. Kids have this all figured out. They laugh 400 times a day. Do you know how many times grown-ups laugh? One study said 17, another said 11. Somebody told me 4. And you know people who can't meet that quota, don't you? I want you to think about after today what makes you laugh. And make a list. Take some time. Are there movies or cartoons or TV shows or comedy skits that just make you laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh until, as my girlfriend said, till tears run down your pant leg? And are there people that make you laugh? I bet you can picture them. Those people that just bring that joyful, bubbling laughter into your life. And are there others that just seem to suck that joy right out of you? Well, unless you're married to them, try not to spend so much time. And instead, circle yourself with things that make you laugh. In your book, there's a chapter dedicated to each one of these things. There's a whole chapter on laughter. And in the book, there's a how-to for all of this. How to breathe, how to relax, how to laugh, and the benefits of laughter. And how to create laughter in your life every day. My girlfriend had a great idea, so I put it in the book. She went to work one day with a piece of tape here. The next day, the tape was here. Another day, the tape was here. Finally, a coworker said, "What is with that tape on your arm every day?" "Oh," she said, "I put that there to show where I headed up to." That's funny. It makes me laugh. What makes you laugh? Write it down. Make a list. Put it in your life every day and laugh 400 times a day like kids, because laughter is your third mental balance tool. And there's a fourth and final. Besides the slow, deep, easy breathing, besides positive thinking and visualization, besides laughter, the fourth is forgiveness. Because we waste a lot of our life. And did you know that science has proven we waste our health if we don't forgive? So starting this afternoon, we forgive. First of all, ourselves for any past mistakes or regretted decisions. Starting today, we forgive ourselves because, friends, that's who we were then based on what we knew then. It's not who we've chosen to be today. Starting today, we forgive ourselves. And starting today, we forgive somebody else. No matter how horrific the offense, and I know that some of them are really horrific. But what took me too long to realize is, if you don't forgive somebody, it doesn't hurt them. It only hurts us. So why would we allow someone who caused us so much pain? Why would we give them the power to continue to hurt us by giving us sleepless nights and upset stomachs and headaches? We have to forgive them whether we think they deserve it or not. We do. And forgiveness is free. Bernie Siegel, that I mentioned, has a story, Chicken Soup, of a young caregiver who seemed to work at this facility for years because he's always assigned to Miss Sally, because Miss Sally hadn't walked in 6 years. And one day, as he was lifting Miss Sally from the bed to the chair, she looked at him and said, "You know, you look like a man of faith. Does God really forgive everything?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, he does." Later he moved her again. She said, "You sure about that? That God always forgives everything?" "Yes, ma'am, I'm sure." They put her back to bed at the end of the day. She looked at him a third time and said, "Can you promise me God always forgives everything?" "Yes, ma'am, I promise." "Well, when I was just a teenager, I stole all the family silver and I sold it so I'd have enough money to get married, and I have never told a single soul to this very day. Can he still forgive me this late?" "Absolutely. Just ask." Well, he went on home, went to work the next day, but immediately called into his supervisor's office, who said, "What did you tell Miss Sally last night?" "She simply asked me if God forgave," I assured her. "He always does. Why?" "Because at 3 o'clock this morning, Miss Sally came walking down the hall. Put her teeth and her Bible on the nurse's desk, said, 'Won't be needing these anymore.' Walked back to her room, lay down, and died." And almost every time I tell that story, a health caregiver in my audience tells me one just like it. Because, friends, forgiveness is free. So starting today, besides yourself, who are you going to forgive? That third part of our lives we have to keep in balance, and that's our spiritual selves. Statistics show that about 95% of Americans believe in God. So I always believe that my audiences reflect that same ratio. So it's to that 95% of you to whom I say, you need to be in touch with the Creator, the Supreme Being, the God you believe in every single day. You can't just wait for weekends for that either. Even if it's as little as 15 minutes for quiet prayer or meditation or reflection. But I can hear what you're thinking right now. Yeah, right, LeAnn, where am I supposed to come up with that? You already told me I have to stop and breathe several times a day now, and I've got to go to bed earlier at night, and I've got to take these short walks now, so where am I supposed to come up with another 15 minutes? Well, that was really hard for me. I knew it was lacking in my life, and I wasn't sure how to claim it. So I thought a good idea, and if you want a hint, I think this is a good way to start. I bought a little daily reading book. But being the task-oriented nurse personality, I couldn't sit down and read it. Way too busy for that, of course. But I could read it every day while I dried my hair. So I opened it up on the bathroom counter, and every day with the hairdryer roaring, I'd read it out loud. And a couple weeks into this, it occurred to me, you know what, LeAnn, I think you're supposed to sit down, shut up, and listen. Just be still and listen to that deep inner voice. Now you can call it higher conscience, you can call it universe, you can call it Holy Spirit, but what I know is that deep inner voice is the divine guidance in our life, and we cannot hear it in the chaos. And I believe, friends, we cannot do what we do without a spiritual balance to our lives. And we cannot give from an empty well. We cannot give holistic care to those we touch, their minds, their bodies, and their spirits. And I love how today your speakers talked about all of that. It's not just about the medicine, is it? It's about the lifestyle. It's about their mental attitude. And we cannot care for them holistically, mind, body, and spirit, if we too are depleted. So that's why after today, I want you to take a look at those symptoms that we had. Give it some thought. That's why I wanted them printed out, because myself, it was like a kick in the head when I read those symptoms. I thought I was doing fine. But now we're in your quiet time. Circle any of those that might apply to you. And then give it some time to think about, what do you need to take better care of yourself? What do you need for your body, your mind, or your spirit? And that's then when you need to ask for what you need. First of all, of yourself. Give yourself permission. There's a chapter on living your priorities. Make yourself and your own self-care a priority. And maybe you need to ask of a coworker. Maybe you need to ask of a family member. When you figure out, what do you need? And that's when then you should be more like a toddler. Does anybody here have a toddler? Have you noticed that when a toddler figures out what they need, they ask it until they get it? Right? I want some juice, Mama. I want juice. 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 So somebody gets the kid juice, right? Now, as long as we tend not to do that, especially those of us who happen to be women, we have a really hard time asking for our juice. Instead, we tend to do something more like, I didn't get any juice today. I hardly ever get juice anymore. Nobody seems to care if I get my juice or I don't. I just need a little. We need to ask for our juice so we can put our lives into better balance, and then we can bring that balance to the workplace. But would you agree we don't always do that? As women, not only do we not bring a balance, sometimes we bring an imbalance and then brag about it. Do you know I've worked here for 20 years, I never have taken a break? You've heard it, right? Another good one is, I worked right through lunch again today. I worked through supper. But here's a favorite of all for women. I didn't even stop to go to the bathroom. We're proud of this. We need to take time every day to ask for our dues, to care for our bodies, mind, body, and spirit every day. And that's why they have me here for you today. They had thousands of people they could have chosen to be your final speaker for today. But you need to know that this organization really cares about you. And I think you have to really be grateful to them for giving you this book, to the Iowa Public Health. You know, they care about you. They brought the book for you. And the Midwestern Public Health Training Center. They put so much effort and interest in, because they truly do care about you, your mind, your body, and your spirit. And they know that it's really, really hard out there. But there are those days you feel like, yes, but I'm just one little person. And the need is so great, I can never get it all done. I can't make everybody happy. I can't take all the pain away. Some days I can't make anybody happy. And on those days you wonder, is my small, little, ordinary part really worth all this? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. Because everything you do matters in ways you'll probably never even hear about. No effort is too small. Everything you do matters in ways that you'll probably never even acknowledge with the words on your touch. One of my first assignments when I got to Vietnam was to walk in the warehouse and pack for 300 kids. And you can imagine how I felt when I walked in there, brushed some dust off a box and saw my own handwriting. It was a box I had sent from Iowa just a couple months before. Now, it's unlikely you're ever going to see your handwriting on a cardboard box in a third world country, but the difference you make is just as great. And you'll likely never be asked to rescue babies in cardboard boxes during a war, but the difference you make is just as great. You are doing life-saving work here. And I know there are those days when you feel like that and you light the single candle, but I want you to remember then the sign that was above a burn unit in Vietnam, where an American plastic surgeon set up a clinic to help the kids burned by the war. And above the doorway he wrote, "It's better to light a single candle than to curse the darkness." And that's what you do every day. You light your single candles. And when you do so, you inspire your patients, their families, your coworkers, your community members to light their candles, and they go on and inspire others to light theirs. And you set not just Iowa, you set the whole world aglow with your goodness and caring. I think Mother Teresa said it best. She said, "I can't do great things. I can only do small things with great love, like you." You can balance your life physically, mentally, and spiritually every day. You can take care of others and take care of yourself. And you will continue to make a tremendous difference in this world. Because you, my friends, you are the heroes. And I applaud you. Thank you. They asked me to leave a few minutes at the end for questions you might have for me. And we're not leaving until somebody asks me one, I'm just saying. I must have been very thorough. I know you have lives and families. Yes, ma'am.
What makes you laugh?
What makes me laugh? My grandkids, and I laugh a lot. I make up funny things to laugh about. And my husband and I have a really silly sense of humor, and we laugh a lot. There are certain comedians that I listen to because they make me laugh a lot. And I did make a list of things that make me laugh. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Other questions? I know you've got busy lives and busy families and busy work to get back to. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the day so you can get some rest.